Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. This video is video 100, and I felt that it's only fitting that we will turn to Deuteronomy chapter 28 to bring to remembrance the children of Israel who have been scattered to the four corners of the earth. By looking at Deuteronomy chapter 28, we will be able to bear witness to the testimonies of the Most High and exactly what he said that he would do, and that we would bear witness to all of his words while we are scattered into the many nations of our captivity. So this video is to reiterate, to cause you to come to remembrance, to bring you to remembrance that you may consider your ways and your doings and make it good. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Once again, brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws, do not turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We are to walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. Now, we will begin Deuteronomy chapter 28. Deuteronomy chapter 28, we will review first the blessings and then the curses that was placed upon the children of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1 reads, And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh thy strong one, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that Yahweh thy strong one would set thee on high above all nations of the earth. So the children of Israel, the Most High would set them above all nations upon the face of the earth. This is a reminder that the peoples of the earth and the sons and God and the sons and daughters of the Most High Yah, the strong one of Israel, they are not the same. They are not on equal footing. The children of Israel are above all nations on the face of the earth. Verse 2, And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of thy strong one Yah. Verse 3, Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, that would be your children, and the fruit of thy ground, that will be your crops, and the fruit of thy cattle, that will be the offspring of your cattle, it will multiply. The increase of thy kind, same thing, the increase of your cattle, and the flocks of thy sheep. Verse 5, Blessed shall be the basket and thy store. Blessed shall thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shall thou be when thou goest out. Going and coming you will be blessed. Verse 7, Yah shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. So now we're in the nations, and we are fearful of our enemies. We're teaching our children to be fearful of our enemies, wicked people. Now in the days of old, our enemies were fearful of us. So now we have this thing juxtaposed, it's all switched around. Verse 8, Yah shall command the blessings upon thee in thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand unto. And he shall bless thee in the land which Yah thy strong one giveth thee. The land that was prepared for the children of Israel, the land that was given to us, is the land of Canaan. It is on the earth. At no time did the creator in this book ever say that he was preparing a place for the children of Israel in the sky. Verse 9, Yah shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of Yah thy strong one, and walk in his ways. Now, we shall be established an holy people. You will hear in the midst of our people, some of us say, oh, you think you're holy, or you can't be holy, oh, no one is holy, and things like that. Remember, the Most High has made it plain that we are to be holy because he is holy. So yes, you can be holy, and that can be done by walking in ordinance with this law, walking in accordance with it. Okay, verse 10, And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of Yah, and they shall be afraid of thee. So the people of the nations Once you turn to this law, once we are walking in lockstep with the Most High and his commandments, all the people of the earth will fear us, because the Most High will be a hedge around about us. And we are called by his name, so the many nations will be afraid of us. All right. And they have been in times past when we were walking in accordance with this law. Verse 11. And Yah shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, that's your children, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, and in the land which Yah sware unto thy fathers to give thee. The land that was sworn unto our fathers to be given unto us was the land of Canaan. Once again, it was not some place in the sky that no one has ever heard of. Verse 12. Yah shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. So, the children of Israel, we will be, in essence, wealthy. We will be able to lend to nations, and they will be borrowing from us. We will not have to go and borrow from other nations, provided if we're walking within this law. That will be the wealth of us being established above the other nations. We wouldn't have to borrow or beg. We're in a state of begging right now. Verse 13. And Yah shall make thee the head and not the tail. The head leads, the tail follows. So we will be the earth's leaders, the leaders of the nations. And thou shalt not be beneath. Right now we're beneath. If that thou hearken unto the commandments of Yah thy strong one, which I command thee this day, to observe and to do them. So if we're to walk in the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, we will lend to nations. We will not borrow. We will be ahead. We will be the lead. We will not be the tail. Verse 14. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. Taking a hold of idols would also be our downfall, should we decide to chuck the Most High's laws behind our back and take a hold of something that is of no worth. Okay, so these would be the many blessings that would befall us should we walk lockstep within the confines of the Most High's law. Now, that was the first 14 verses. It discussed what our blessings would be. Now, starting at verse 15, let's look and see what the repercussions would be, what the consequence and the punishments would be should we decide to take a hold of something new, something we have never heard of, something that the Most High never spoke of, nor has his prophets ever brought to the people. So should we take a hold of something new, something foreign, something worthless, these are the things that will befall us. Here are the curses. Verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken, will not listen unto the voice of Yah thy strong one, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. A reverse of what we read earlier through verse 1 through 15. Verse 17. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, that's your children, and the fruit of thy land, that's your crops, and the increase of thy kind, that's your cattle, and the flocks of thy sheep. Total opposite, total reversal of what we've read through the first 15 verses. Verse 19. Cursed shall thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shall thou be when thou goest out. Yah shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thy hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Now, if we are walking contrary to the Most High's law, that is known as wickedness. If anyone is doing anything that is contrary to the Most High's law, that will be considered an evil person. That will be considered a wicked person. So the measuring stick and the standard to determine if someone is quote unquote an evil person or a good person, good being righteous, evil being wicked, the standard to hold against them is this law. Verse 21. Yah shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it. Now, that would be the land of Israel as we went to possess that land. Okay, he made sure that the rains did not fall. He made sure that the pestilence would eat up the crops and things and the like. So anything that we chose to possess, other people will come and depossess us of it. It will be taken away. Okay, verse 22. Yah shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, that's death in all of its manifestations, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. So evil was sent after the children of Israel as we started to walk outside the confines of his law, and he sent evil after us. Keep in mind, evil is sent by the Most High. The Satan figure is of one's imagination. The Most High is responsible for both good and evil. Verse 23. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, meaning it will not be raining upon our crops. And the earth that is under thee shall be iron. The earth will not yield its increase. In other words, our crops will perish. Verse 24. Yah shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. So once we started walking outside the confines of this law, nothing but bad things will befall us. Verse 25. Yah shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. So here we are. We have been removed into all the many kingdoms of the earth, and our enemies continue to have us fearful. So instead of them being afraid of us, as in the days of old, now we're terrified of them, and we're teaching our children to be terrified of them as well. Verse 26. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the field, and no man shall fray them away. So when we were killed by our enemies, our bodies will be laying there in the fields for the vultures and all the other birds of prey to come and eat on our bodies, and no one would actually bury us. Verse 27. Yah will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. Verse 28. Yah shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. So the madness and the blindness is not being able to see, as you know. The law is lamp. The law is lamp, okay, is a light, okay, and the commandment is a lamp. So if you're not able to see, that means clearly that you will not be able to understand the Most High's law. And someone who is blind is certainly walking around in circles. They have no idea where they're going. Okay, the madness will pertain to we're continuing to see the injustice against our people. It makes us upset. It saddens us in our hearts to see our children shot down, to see our uncles shot down. Okay, to be called all type of disparaging names, etc., on the job and wherever else. Okay, and this drives you mad. Okay, it can affect you psychologically, mentally, emotionally, etc. These are the many different curses that's upon us. Verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and none shall save thee. So when all these curses befall us in these many nations, no one will step forth. No one will speak on our behalf. No one will be able to rescue us from this condition. No man can rescue you. No one can rescue you from the hands of the Most High. And that is why the Most High made it plain to the children of Israel. When I put these curses upon you, call upon the many gods that you have served, and see if they will deliver you out of mine hand. And so far, we have been screaming on all the foreign gods that we've never heard of, and they have failed to deliver us out of the hands of our enemies. Okay, we are groping like the blind, grope in darkness. Darkness once again. No law, no lamp. No lamp, no light. And this is why we're groping, because we're walking contrary to the Most High's law. Verse 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Now, thou shalt betroth a wife. In the slavery days, we know clearly that the slave master would come and take your wife, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Okay, even though you may be engaged to that woman, you may be that woman's husband. But not only that, pertaining to the slavery days, we can look at that now in the modern day era. You go to work, another man is in your house. Okay, sometimes it's your friend, sometimes it's your brother. So we have it to where the daughters of Zion have become adulterous, and the men of Israel have engaged in adultery by laying down with his best friend's wife, with his best friend's fiance, with his brother's wife, etc. So this is some of the madness and the curses that we placed in the midst of the children of Israel. We will plant vineyards, and even if we did gather the grapes, we were not allowed to benefit from it financially, and certainly we're not allowed to eat it. It was taken away. It was sold for profit. And so we were working for naught. Verse 31. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. So this verse 31, lets us know clearly that which we have in possession will be taken away. Anything to quote unquote enrich us, we will be stripped of it. And no one is going to restore. It's not going to be restored back onto you, okay? And none is going to rescue you to help you retrieve that which you have lost. So this verse right here speaks directly to anyone that's speaking of reparations, thinking that you're going to be given back something that you have lost by your enemies. Until we return back to this law, that's not happening. And if it does happen, then that means that this testimony right here of the Most High will not stand. So now we're going to see one or two things. Either A, like the Most High said, he's going to see, and we're all going to see whose words are going to stand. The words of the Israelites that's saying, oh, ain't nothing going to happen. Ain't nothing going to happen to us if we go back to Egypt. We'll be just fine there, as they did in the days of old. Or the Israelite that's saying right now, hey, look, we're going to get these reparations if we continue to put pressure on these people. So we're going to see exactly whose words are going to stand. The Israelite who's saying something contrary to this law, or the Most High's word. We will see clearly whose word shall stand. Verse 32, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fill with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand. Now, we know clearly our sons and our daughters were shipped to different plantations, were shipped to different nations. As we were scattered in the midst of these nations, our children were stripped from us. We were bereaved of our children. Now, that's in the days of old, during the time of slavery. Now, in today, our children, we're being bereaved of our children when they are locked up. They're incarcerated on trumped-up charges. And then they're shipped 3 or 4 states away, which forces us to use all of our economical means in which to be in contact with them, etc. So we're still bereaved of our children in this manner. Our children are being indoctrinated in the schools of our enemies, and they're teaching them things that are harmful to us, causing our children to take part in practices that's harmful to their own people. So this practice is still being being implemented today, although some of us are not aware of exactly what they're looking at. Verse 32, verse 33, excuse me. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. So many nations, okay, shall put us to work. Okay, we will work for nothing, and all the increase of our work shall they eat up. So all that we do and have done, we will not benefit from it financially. Verse 34. So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. Once again, when you look at your TV screen, or you look at the news, you're seeing our sons get shot down. Your sons are being locked up. You're being denied a promotion at the job. You're losing your pension. You're seeing a whole lot of things happening that's just stripping you of your sanity. You understand clearly that what's being done is wickedness. You understand clearly that what's being done is unrighteousness. And it's being done to you. Moreover, what you're seeing is that the unrighteous is prospering. And that will certainly drive a man mad when he sees that things that's being done is vile, it's foul, it's wicked, it's evil. And yet he is powerless to stop it. And those that are doing the evil are prospering above him. And he doesn't understand exactly how he changes his circumstance. That's the children of Israel. We don't know exactly how do we fix this. And the first means and ways for us to fix this is to become holy, is to become righteous, and that is to walk within the confines of the Most High's law. So we're being driven mad for all the foul and the foul and the vile things that we are seeing day to day. Verse 35. Yah shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. Verse 36. Yah shall bring thee and thy king/governor, which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there shall thou serve other gods, wood and stone. So we know clearly the sons of David, who are the governors. The governor is a successive line of men, sons of David. Okay, and once they stepped out of line, the Most High made it clear that he would uproot them out of the land, and he did that with several of them, and took them into Assyria, and took them into Babylon and places like that. Literally shipped them out. And once they were there, our people began to develop bad habits. We started doing all the things that we were commanded not to do. We were not to serve strange gods that we have not known. We were certainly not to make any image, wood or stone, gold or silver, and pay homage to it. Verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all nations, whither Yah shall lead thee. In every nation where the children of Israel dwell, there is a proverb and a byword, a taunt, a derogatory term that is used for us no matter where we live, no matter where we go. And so the astonishment is, how could a people so great fall so low? How can these people who have been so great be at the bottom and beneath all the nations of the earth? That is the astonishment in the midst of our people. Verse 38. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locusts shall consume it. So once we plant our crops, okay, if we were trying to feed our families, the earth will not yield its increase to us. The rain will not fall upon the lands like it should. The land will not be fertile. And if it was fertile and it brought forth a bounty to us, or a bountiful harvest, the Most High would cause the locusts to eat it up. So we were going to suffer no matter what. Verse 39. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them up. Verse 40. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. We will plant these olive trees, and they may come forth early or late, and the fruit may not be any good. Okay. Verse 41. Thou shalt begat sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So once again, our sons and daughters being shipped away, okay, going into captivity from one country to the next, or from one plantation to the next. All right, and we would hope to see them again, but that will not happen. So that is us being bereaved of our children, being stripped of them. That is our seed. Verse 42. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. And that brings about the dearth, that brings about famine within the land. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. So wherever we are, in the midst of the many nations, whatever land we occupy, all right, let's say they give us a specific land in Brazil or in Mexico, wherever it is we live, okay, other people will be seeking to strip us and take that land from us. That's number one. Now, the second part of that is any stranger, let's say someone came from the Ukraine and moved to Mexico, he will be in a higher status than an Israelite that is born and raised in Mexico, that goes to the United States and any place else where we dwell. We will see with our own eyes and bear witness that strangers can come into a land in which we have dwelled longer than they have and actually run circles around us and prosper while we suffer. So these are things that we are to bear witness, so that the stranger will get up above us very high and we will be very low, when in times past it was the reversal of that. He shall lend to thee, that's the stranger, that's the nations, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. So now we are borrowing, and now we're even being relegated to begging. We're begging the stranger. We're now begging the nations, okay, because now he has the power to lend, and we are now borrowers, okay. Now he is leading, and we are following. And the children of Israel, we are supposed to be the head. We are supposed to lead, and that is why the earth is in a mess right now. For evil people, those who know not Yah, those who walk not in his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, they are the individuals now, the many nations that are leading the earth today. And that is why the earth is in disarray, because there are people who are heading it that know not the Most High, walk not in his ways. In fact, they claim that he does not exist, because they're saying clearly that there is no law. To say that there is no law is to say that there is no God, there is no strong one, there is no Yah, for he is the law. Verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yah thy strong one, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. So, no matter where we go, no matter what we do, these curses will continue to pursue us. It will continue to overtake us, okay? And until we return back unto the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, it will be more of the same. Verse 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Now, that is verse 46. It shall be upon thee for a sign. A sign points to something. So what many of the nations refuse to accept is that Deuteronomy 28 clearly is the Most High's testimony to the children of Israel. Is the Most High's testimony to the nations of the earth. He is clearly identifying exactly who his people are. That way, those who are of a contrite spirit, those who have any righteousness in them, will be able to read this chapter and say, you know what? Let me take a close look at the people, the many people of the earth, and see exactly who fits these curses. And therefore, I can identify the children of Israel. And that way I know specifically how to deal with God's people. And if I am one of God's people and I read this text and I understand it and I can bear witness to it, then I have a decision to make. Do I make a full turn back unto the Most High, or do I continue to walk after idols, wood, and stone in the many nations of our captivity? So once we are able to see and bear witness to these testimonies, then we all have a decision to make, whether we are of the children of Israel or of the nations. So these are the curses placed upon us. That way he can clearly identify to the people of the earth exactly who his sons and daughters are. Verse 47. Because thou servest not Yah thy strong one with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. So, when it was time to give up our best for the sacrifices, we wanted to bring a lame animal. When it's time for the Sabbath, we don't want to do the Sabbath. When it's the Day of Atonement, oh man, I've got to starve all day. We made it a burden onto us instead of serving the Most High with gladness. When it's time to bring my sacrifices, I'm looking for the best so I can take it to the Most High, because it is He who blessed me to have it in the first place. So we weren't thinking in that regard. We became selfish. We corrupted ourselves by, first of all, walking contrary to the first commandment which we were given, is that we shall put nothing before the Most High. So once you decide, I'm not going to give up the best of my flock, that's you putting yourself before the Most High. And these things have caused our downfall. Verse 48. Thou shalt serve thine enemies, which Yah shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. This is our enemies. So since we failed to serve the Most High with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. So in order for us to achieve anything, for all things, we had to turn to the Most High, put him first. We refused to do that. We did something contrary to that. So since we did that, the Most High said, since you don't want to serve me, then you're going to serve your enemies. And it is He, the Most High, who sent our enemies against us. So all these nations in which we dwell, and we're taking this beat down day to day, it is the Most High that has brought our enemies against us. This is to reiterate to all the children of Israel in the many nations who have been brought to remembrance, who are aware of who they are. You are to understand, regardless of the nation that you're in right now, the people that's around you are your enemies. And you are not to forget that. Now, since we would not depend on the Most High for all things, now we are to depend on our enemies for the want of all things. And our enemies will put a yoke of iron around our necks. We'll be servants unto them. Okay, we'll be the bottom of the barrel. We'll be slaves, servants. We'll be in a subservient position. Okay, we will not be the lead. So let's see if we can bear witness to this. Okay, that we will have to depend upon our enemies for the want of all things. Let's start with your day. Okay, when your day begins and you wake up, the bed that you slept in and the sheets that you slept on, okay, your enemies own that sheet company and own that bed frame. They have the companies that made this. Okay, your foot hits the floor of the nice wood floor that you have in your house. Okay, it is your enemies that's cutting down the trees, that's hewing down the forest. It is his chainsaw company that cut that wood, and it is his wood factories that made that wood to put upon your floor. So you don't own these things. You walk over to your sink to brush your teeth. The toothpaste, it is his company. The toothbrush, it is his company. You turn on the water in which to rinse out your mouth. The water company, the water treatment company, and all those other facilities, it's controlled by your enemies. You get into the shower, you turn the knob, he owns the company that made that. You already know for the water to come on, you have to pay monthly. That goes to your enemies as well. You grab that towel to dry yourself off. Okay, he has the towel companies. He owns the textile industries that produces cloth, that moves the commerce back and forth over the seas. We do not own any of the dry shippers or the bulk shippers of the earth. Okay, all these major ships and the shipping lanes, etc., is controlled by your enemies. The soap company, the soap that you use to take a shower with, okay, he makes that soap as well. So you dressed, you put on the clothes. Once again, he owns the textile companies and the clothing. So you're wearing things that you're not supposed to wear. Instead of it being 100% of whatever the fabric is supposed to be, we're now walking around with mixed fabric. It's something that we were instructed not to do. So they own all the textile industries. Now you decided you're going to go to work. You put on the shoes, he makes a shoe company. All right, you grab your keys to go to the car. He owns the automotive industry. He builds the cars. You have to put gas in the car to go from A to B. He owns all the petrol. He controls it from the Middle East. He controls the pricing of it, the distribution of it, the shipping of it, etc. And this is for you to get back and forth. If you were to get a job, chances are you're going to your enemies for employment. If you're looking for a day off, you turn to your enemies for a day off. Should you become sick, your enemies runs and owns the hospitals. Your enemies runs and controls the pharmaceutical companies for the medication that you need to get well. So in every aspect of life, in the many nations. Oh, not to add, let me add this as well. You're living in the midst of your enemies in these many nations where you're not supposed to have any ease. No law, we have not made any law within the many nations in which we are captive. Our enemies have made the laws and we simply have to abide by them. And none of them are in our favor because these laws were not designed for us. The laws that were designed for us is written within this Torah. And so since we did not want to follow the laws of the Torah, now we have to walk in the laws of our enemies. And these are statutes that are not good. So that was an example of bearing witness to the fact that we will rely upon our enemies for the want of all things. For a loan when you need to get that house, you have to go to your enemies. He controls the banking system. He controls the currency and the fluctuations thereof. So anytime you decide to make a move, you have to consult your enemies first. You're not even allowed to raise your own children without consulting your enemies. Okay, so this is where we are to rely on our enemies for the want of all things. So I hope that example uh, give you some understanding and some insight to how verse 48 applies to us in hunger and thirst. If this man decides he wants to close down all his grocery stores tomorrow or put a guard there to make sure that the children of Israel don't have access to any of the groceries in your Walmart or any other major store, we'll starve to death. And that's simply us having to rely upon our enemies for the want of all things. Verse 49, thou shalt bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Thinking as swift as the eagle flieth. Keep in mind all of these nations that we see right now are nothing but fragments of the Roman Empire. When you look at the coat of arms of these many European nations, and it is Europeans that took the children of Israel into captivity, okay, when you look at their coat of arms and their flags, etc., it has something to do with Catholicism, which is Christianity. Christianity is the new name of Catholicism. It's all the same thing. It has something to do with uh, Greek and Roman mythology, and it has something to do with some type of idolatry coming out of the Roman Catholic Church that goes for all of these European nations, their flags and their coat of arms. Verse 50, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. They will kill a 2-year-old Israelite or a 99-year-old Israelite. So there will be no distinction. There will be no mercy. There will be no compassion shown to the children of Israel by their enemies. Verse 51, and he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. In other words, with our enemies, they're going to seek to take anything that we have. It doesn't matter if they need it or not. If we have it, they're going to take it. They don't care what it is. Okay, they don't care if it has no value to them whatsoever. There are people who know not the Most High, have no compassion, who are wicked, who are evil, who walk contrary to his law. And we're going to learn that. Verse 52, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, throughout all thy land, which Yah thy strong one hath given thee. So we will be besieged in the land of Israel. We were cut off, okay, by our enemies, ultimately killed and kicked out. No commerce was allowed to come back and forth in between our gates, which literally starved the people. Okay, verse 53, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which Yah thy strong one hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. So the whole of Israel was cut off. The enemies that was brought against us had cut off any commerce from moving back and forth out of the major cities. So therefore, there was no wheat coming back and forth, corn, wine, etc. The people had to pretty much survive on whatever it was that they had within the land right then. They were not allowed to import or export anything. This caused a great famine, okay, a great siege, okay, straitness, all right. So what we're seeing is that the people during this great siege, they were not able to eat, okay, and so therefore what happened, they began to eat their children. So can you imagine the child that you have right now, things becoming so bad where you didn't have anything to eat, that you actually had to eat your child? Can you fathom that? Okay, and that is a reminder that we are not to play with the Most High. Okay, verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. So the man that was compassionate, the man that cared about his children, the man that cared about his house, the man that cared about his wife, his sons, and his daughter, all of a sudden there's a change in his spirit. Okay? The change in his spirit is that he would start to look evil towards his brother, and towards the wife of his bosom, and towards his children. So here the Most High is changing the spirit within us all of a sudden. Okay? Now verse 55. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children, whom he shall eat. So here the man of his house is eating his daughter or eating his son, because the strait is so tight upon the people. It's dire times. There's nothing to eat. He's eating his child, but he won't share the meat with anyone else. Just fathom that for a minute, okay? All right, once again, let's read verse 55. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he has nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. So our enemies distressed us to where we were actually eating our children. Verse 56. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom, and towards her son, and towards her daughter. So imagine that, the delicate and tender daughter of Zion. Her spirit will turn as well. Her spirit will turn against her husband, will turn against her own house, and turn against the children that she brought between her feet that she bore. So imagine how dire that situation is. Verse 57. And toward her young one that came out from between her feet, and towards her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in thy gates. So the daughter of Zion, she was eating her kids in secret. Okay, her heart became evil towards her husband, and towards her children, and towards her house. Okay, so these are the things that happen to us because we refuse to obey. To be in obedience to the Most High's law requires one thing, and that's discipline. And if we look at our people in the many midst of the earth today, especially our males, our biggest downfall is a lack of discipline in the midst of our men. Verse 58. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name. Yah. It says here in my book, fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God is not a name. Okay? The name is Yah. We must learn to fear it. Verse 59. Then Yah will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, that's your children, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. So the fact that we are walking contrary to this law is going to affect us. It's going to affect our seed, our children. Okay, and it's going to be of long continuance. So we will see these plagues from generation to generation, and that way we can bear witness to these testimonies, to these words. Okay, verse 60. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. That's why we see the same generational sickness, generation to generation, no matter where we live. Verse 61. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, then will Yah bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. So this is a straight up killing is what's going on. And those who are not dead will pretty much be living in misery. Okay. However, in spite of all of this, the Most High did say that he would be a sanctuary in the midst of us, in the midst of these nations. So we still will have some bits of reprieve here and there. Verse 62. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yah thy strong. So we were greater in number, okay, but because of the famine, because of all the pestilence, etc., the Most High reduced our numbers. He's killing us off. Okay, and there will be more and more of this, because the rebellious, the undisciplined, will not make it out of these lands. They will pine away in these nations. They will not make it back to the land of their fathers, because they do not have the discipline by which to walk within the confines of this law. To obey rules and regulations require discipline, and our people have been taught not to have any, for they were taught by their enemies that there is no law. And we clearly should understand by now, if you have been at this channel for any amount of time, that lack of law equals lawlessness. Lawlessness requires absolutely no accountability for anything that you say or do. Verse 63. And it shall come to pass that as Yah rejoiced, the word rejoice should not be here. I would use the word watch over rather than rejoice, because the Most High takes no pleasure in killing the children of Israel. Okay, so verse 63, as it shall come to pass, and it shall come to pass that as Yah watched, instead of the word rejoice, over you to do you good and to multiply you, so Yah will watch over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught, and ye shall be plucked up from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. So that is being plucked up off the land of Israel as we went to possess it. And then we will get in these many nations of our captivity. And soon as we begin to show any signs of prosperity in these lands, we're going to be kicked out of that spot too. So wherever we dwell, any place that we went to occupy, we're going to see ourselves being slowly but surely uprooted from any place that we decide to make our residence. And that doesn't apply only to the nation of Israel. That applies to us in the many lands of our captivity. We're going to be pushed out constantly from place to place. We will not be allowed to hold on to be in possession of anything. Okay? Verse 64. And Yah shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And that's where we are right now. We have been scattered among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other, and we are serving gods, lowercase g, idols, which neither us nor our fathers have known. We have never heard of HAC. We've never heard of churches being on every block. We've never heard of altars in these churches. The Most High only had one house, and it was in one city. And he only commanded us to bring our tithe, our offerings, and to make our vows at the one place that he chose. So anyone that's speaking anything that's not in accordance to this law, there is no light in them. There is no law in them. There's no understanding in them, and they're walking after the ways of idols. And I hope that makes it clear. So that's where we are right now. We're walking after the ways of the Romans. Okay? Verse 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But Yah shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. Now, a trembling heart, that is fearful. That is terror, uncertainty. Okay? Now, somehow the children of Israel in these many nations are spilling a lie, spewing a lie, and speaking contrary to the Most High's words. So once again, if you speak contrary to this word, there's no light in you, there's no understanding in you, there's no law in you, and certainly the Spirit of the Most High is not upon you. So our people, I continue to hear them say that God did not give them a spirit of fear. They clearly have not read these curses, especially when they would say that. And these are the very people that are fearful of absolutely everything and are powerless to do anything about the fear that has overcome them. Okay? So, failing, trembling heart, gonna be fearful, failing of eyes. We're just gonna be a sorrowful people. We're gonna be a hurt people, a destroyed people, a confused people. Don't know who we are, trying to cling on to just about anything to find an identity. Find ourselves trying to be like other people in order to be accepted, uh, and we have become subservient now, where some of us are so broken we are accepting being last place. We're accepting being at the bottom. And we're saying things and doing things to make our enemies feel comfortable in the midst of us. And even though we're doing all of this, it's still not working. Verse 66, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. We're already aware of this, okay? Fear day and night, none assurance of thy life. You can be shot if you're pulled over at the traffic stop. Okay, you can be fired for doing something that the next man would pretty much get a slap on the wrist for. All right. Verse 67. In the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, would God it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. So when it becomes morning, we're going to wish it was night. When it was night, we're going to wish it was the morning, because we're going to see the terrors during the day. We're going to see the terrors during the night. It's going to be constant. Okay, so this can be applied back to slavery days when the night came. Okay, there came the clansmen and whomever else to terrify you at night, and they terrified you during the day. Okay, now it's quite different as far as the daytime here, meaning instead of you now being fearful in that manner, okay, now you go to work, you're wishing that the work day was over. You know, someone asks you, hey man, how's it going? Hey man, hey, I'm wishing to get this one over with. I'm hoping that the day hurries up so I can get off. So we're not really enjoying our lives like we should, because the distress is so much. We're being worked for so long. It is displeasing to us. There's no joy in it, but we must do it in order to sustain ourselves and our families. So we're at these jobs for hours on end, wishing that the day would go by quickly so we will be able to be off to spend some time with our families and maybe do something that we do enjoy. So we're not really living. We are alive, but most of us are alive, but we're still within the dust of the earth. We're not really living. And many of us, though we're wishing for the day to be over with so we can get out of our workplace, which in many cases is displeasing to us, we must understand that as we wish for a faster day, the faster the day gets done, that's one day closer to death. And many of us don't consider that. So we should be happy to be alive, turn to the Most High with our whole heart and our whole soul, that he may ease this burden of these curses that's upon us, and we may ease it upon ourselves and upon our houses. Okay, we can find some relief once we turn back full 180. Okay, all right. Verse 68, and Yah shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. All right. So that concludes Deuteronomy chapter 28. In the days of old, if you were a bondman or a bondwoman, okay, your family members may come and bond you out of that commitment with someone else, and thus they can pay a fee to secure your freedom. Okay. Now, once we're scattered into these many nations and we're sold onto our enemies, okay, there will be no one that's coming to bail us out, to actually put up a bond to get us free. For the Most High said clearly that none can deliver out of his hand. So we are now in the clutches of the Most High. He has taken us into captivity. He has brought our enemies against us. Okay, and we were sold unto our enemies. So if you are in the midst of these nations, you are children of the diaspora, and you are aware of who sold you, you are aware of who enslaved you, you are aware of who made laws against you and your children, then what you have there is all the evidence you need to understand clearly who the enemies are to you and who the enemies are to your people. And the minute you understand that, then you will maneuver within the midst of these nations entirely differently, because you're maneuvering in the midst of your enemies. We were not taught this, so now we have a very different viewpoint to where we're accepting of all people. We are the people that's told to be accepting of everyone, to take everyone into consideration first. When other people first take their own people and themselves into consideration first, and other people last. So we have been taught something contrary to what everyone else does. So what we must do now is, first of all, we'll put the Most High first. That ought to be our number one priority. And after that, then we will put our people first. Because it is very, nowadays, if you have a conversation with an Israelite and you start discussing things that pertain to our people, most of them are so brain dead, he wants to discuss other people, not having the discipline to discuss the task at hand within his own house. And that's how we have been raised in the midst of the heathen. We are to consider them first before we even consider addressing our own issues, and doing that in righteousness and with honesty. So this lesson is a reminder to the children of Israel exactly who you are, okay, exactly how to go into this book and to read these curses that was placed upon the children of Israel, and understand clearly why they were placed upon us. So once we see these curses, we read it and we can bear witness to it. Now we look around in the midst of our nations, and then we can make a determination exactly who the children of Israel really are. If that's you, then you know exactly that you have to change your ways and you cannot walk contrary to this law. If you are of the nations and you can clearly identify who the Most High's people are, then what you are to do, then you are to be careful of how you treat the Most High's people, for the simple fact that he will bring to account, he will bring to reckoning all those who have abused his people, have mistreated them, enslaved them, etc. They're going to be brought to account for it. So if you are of the nations and you are a stranger that is of a contrite spirit, you can get ahead of the curve right here by understanding what has happened and what your ancestors have done to the children of Israel, and you can start making amends for that right now as you begin to understand this. And if you are the children of Israel, you understand clearly that you have done violence to the Most High's law, and you are also to turn to face Jerusalem, lift your hands in prayer, to acknowledge your faults, that you have wronged them, so have your forefathers, and you're not to continue to do that, and you're to turn to walk lockstep in this law. So I hope this is the 100th lesson on this channel anyway, okay? And I found it only fitting that we would go back to Deuteronomy 28 and reiterate exactly what transpired and what has caused us to be in this mess. So this is simply, I'm not telling you what to believe, what to think, or what to do. All I'm doing is I'm showing you exactly where to look. You with your own eyes shall determine what you see. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Blessed be the name of Yah the King, the creator of heaven and earth, and all there is within the heavens and the earth, the fountain of living waters, and the only Savior of the house of Israel and the entire earth. You are to return back onto this law. It is our only way out. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Next up, my next lesson will be on Deuteronomy chapter 30, 28. This addresses the curses that was placed upon us. Deuteronomy chapter 30 is how we get out. So the next lesson I do, we will be reading Deuteronomy chapter 30. That way you understand exactly how to alleviate yourself of these many curses that's upon us and upon our children. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Peace, Israel.